In May 2023, King Charles III was crowned at Westminster Abbey. It was the moment he had waited 73 years for, the longest apprenticeship in the history of the British monarchy. He was 74 years old. His mother had just died, and he finally had the crown. It lasted less than 3 years before the palace began, quietly preparing to give it away. Right now, behind closed doors at Buckingham Palace, officials are running what royal insiders are calling an abdication plan. Practice runs for the Accession Council, rehearsals for the public proclamation from St. James's Palace, a quiet handover ceremony where Charles would sign the instrument of abdication. They haven't told the public. They haven't confirmed it. They have barely hinted at it. But 4 separate sources, speaking to journalists across 3 different outlets in the past 8 weeks, have now confirmed the same thing. King Charles III is preparing to step down, and the reason they're keeping it secret has nothing to do with his health. It has everything to do with his brother. Let's start with what the palace has officially said, and what it has carefully not said. In February 2024, King Charles publicly disclosed that he had been diagnosed with cancer. He did not name the type. He did not describe the stage. He said only that it had been caught during a prostate procedure, that he was beginning treatment, and that he remained wholly positive. For 2 years, the palace maintained that position. Wholly positive, responding well, back to work. Then, in December 2025, Charles recorded a message for Channel 4's Stand Up to Cancer broadcast. He told viewers his treatment could be reduced in 2026, a milestone, he called it. Good news, the palace briefed journalists accordingly. This is progress. This is recovery. The king is doing well. But veteran royal correspondent Robert Jobson, who has covered the monarchy for over 30 years, told Tom Sykes' The Royalist podcast something very different. He said the palace had been overemphasizing the good news, that officials briefed journalists the treatment reduction was more positive than it really was, that the king is not recovering in any conventional sense. His exact words, "The king is living with cancer. He will live with cancer. There's not any prospect of anything other than living with cancer." And that probably says it all, really. Not recovering. Living with it. Permanently. And yet those close to him insisted publicly he was energized. Happy. Busier than ever. There is a phrase for what the palace was doing. It is called managing the narrative. And in this case, the narrative they were managing was not just about his health. It was about buying time. On February 19th, 2026, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was arrested. And something shifted at Buckingham Palace that nobody has properly reported. Within 48 hours of the arrest, according to a source close to the king's inner circle, Charles held a private meeting with his most senior advisors. No aides, no staff. Just the people he trusts most. What was discussed in that meeting has not been officially confirmed, but what followed it speaks volumes. The week after Andrew's arrest, the pace of abdication planning accelerated. Sources who had previously described it as contingency planning, something prepared for every eventuality, began describing it differently, less theoretical, more imminent. Why? Because of what the Epstein investigation might uncover next. The emails between Andrew and Epstein included documents forwarded from his trade envoy role. Those documents passed through official government channels. They were seen by aides, advisors, and in some cases by officials at the Foreign Office. The question being asked in legal circles, and now increasingly in the palace, who else knew what Andrew was doing and when? Buckingham Palace received over 30,000 emails from members of the public, alleging that Andrew leaked state secrets. 30,000 in the weeks following his arrest. One source told Radar Online, the whole machine was complicit in covering him to protect their own brand. The Queen just thought Andrew was a naughty playboy, but everybody looked the other way. Everybody. That word is doing enormous work in this story. Because if the investigation widens, if it moves beyond Andrew and begins asking what senior palace officials knew, and when, the institution itself comes under scrutiny. And Charles, as king, sits at the top of that institution. A royal insider told Globe, Charles knew more than he let on. The whole family has been covering this up. They are all complicit. The whole royal machine is complicit in this from the top down. That is an extraordinary allegation. It has not been proven. Andrew has not been charged. No formal accusation has been made against Charles. But in the palace's calculation, the risk is not about guilt. It is about perception, and perception in the monarchy is everything. While Charles has been managing his health and managing Andrew's fallout, his son has been preparing. On May 8, 2026, Prince William and Kate hosted a garden party at Buckingham Palace. The guest list was notable. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Edward and Sophie, Zara Tindall, William's cousin, a tight circle of the most trusted, most reliable members of the royal family. Royal insiders say the event was not just a garden party. According to sources speaking to New Idea, palace officials are now running what they are calling abdication rehearsals. Practice runs for the Accession Council, the body that formally proclaims a new monarch. Dry runs for the public proclamation from the balcony of St. James's Palace. And preparation for the moment Charles would sign the instrument of abdication. The last British monarch to abdicate was King Edward V in December 1936. It has been described as a no-go topic in the royal family ever since. An act of failure, a betrayal of duty. But something changed in 2023 when Charles's distant cousin, Queen Margrethe of Denmark, stepped down at 83 and handed the crown to her son Frederick. It was smooth. It was dignified. It worked. Sources say Charles took note, and sources say William has been doing more than taking note. He has been positioning. Radar Online reported that William is ready to go to war with Charles over the financial demands made by Andrew and Fergie on palace funds. He has made his position on Beatrice and Eugenie's palace apartments clear. He has, according to multiple sources, been ruthless from the beginning about removing his uncle. One source was direct. Everybody knows Prince William has been ruthless from the beginning about removing his uncle. He's going to do nothing to protect Andrew. A second source added, Prince William wants to fix the monarchy because he knows it's the right thing to do. He has better morals and he is interested in the preservation of the monarchy. And a third, perhaps the most telling of all, William's coronation could happen as soon as this summer, assuming everything goes to plan and Charles agrees to the terms of his abdication. The terms of his abdication, not if, the terms. There is one more element to this story that almost nobody is reporting. Andrew and Sarah Ferguson are broke. Royal Lodge is gone. The titles are gone. The protection officers are gone. The income streams have dried up. And according to sources, Fergie has been using Beatrice's credit cards to cover basic expenses because, in the words of one source, she rarely paid for anything herself. They are, in the bluntest possible terms, desperate. And desperate people make dangerous decisions. According to a source close to the palace, both Andrew and Fergie are now considering selling their explosive palace secrets to the highest bidder. A tell-all book, interviews, revelations about Charles, revelations about the death of Princess Diana. That last word, Diana, carries a weight that no other name in British royal history can match. A source told Globe. Andrew and Fergie know where all the bodies are buried. Andrew once declared, and this is on record, I'll tell the truth about Diana. Let that sit for a moment. The man currently under investigation for sharing state secrets with a pedophile is threatening to reveal what he knows about his former sister-in-law's death. Whether that is a genuine threat or a desperate bluff is impossible to know from the outside, but inside the palace it is being taken seriously. Because Andrew, whatever else he is, was there. He was part of the family. He was in the room for conversations that were never meant to be public, and Charles knows exactly what Andrew knows, which may be the most compelling reason of all for why the abdication plan is being accelerated, a clean transition to William. A fresh start. A new reign untouched by the scandals of the old one, before Andrew has the chance to burn everything down. So what does an abdication actually look like? And what happens next? Constitutionally, it is straightforward. The monarch signs the instrument of abdication. Parliament passes an act of settlement. The Accession Council meets. The new sovereign is proclaimed from the balcony of St. James's Palace. It has happened once in modern British history. Edward VIII signed his instrument of abdication on December 10, 1936, within hours. His brother Albert, now who took the name George VI, was king. It took less than a day. This time, sources say it would be handled differently, more gradually, more publicly managed. The transition will look measured and dignified, a source told Stylecaster. Health provides the most unassailable explanation. Charles will not be seen as pushed. He has waited a lifetime for this role. When he steps back, it will be entirely on his terms. On his terms. Or so the public will be told. What would a William coronation look like? Sources say deliberately smaller than Charles. William and Kate won't want anything as ostentatious when the time comes. A source confirmed. A clean break, a reset. A monarchy distanced from Epstein, from Andrew, from decades of protected scandals. But here's the question none of the sources have answered. What happens to the investigation into Andrew? If Charles abdicates and William becomes king, Andrew's investigation does not disappear. The CPS does not stand down. Thames Valley Police do not close the file. The U.S. Department of Justice does not withdraw its requests. A new reign does not equal a new legal reality. What it does equal, potentially, is a monarchy that has publicly separated itself from the scandal. That has drawn a line. That has said, through the act of transition itself, the old era is over. Whether the public accepts that line, and whether the courts do, is another question entirely. King Charles III waited 73 years to be king. He has been king for less than 4 years. In that time, he has buried his mother, been diagnosed with cancer, watched his brother get arrested, stripped that brother of his titles, had his family's finances scrutinized by Parliament, and begun quietly preparing to hand the crown to his son. He did not choose most of this. Some of it chose him, but one thing is becoming clear. The monarchy that William inherits will be fundamentally different from the one Elizabeth handed to Charles. Smaller, leaner, more exposed, more accountable. Whether that is a good thing for the institution depends entirely on who you ask. The abdication plan is real. The timeline is unclear. The Epstein investigation is still open. And Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the man at the center of all of it, is still, as of today, living in a cottage on his brother's estate, watching, waiting, and knowing exactly what he knows. This is Monarchy Uncensored. Subscribe and hit the bell. We cover this story as it happens. No palace spin, no PR. I'll see you in the next one.